welcome to Think Tech. We are talking about education, diversity, technology, and globalism. This show is Center Stage. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard. I'm also the proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, and we are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukuhua Theater. I'm excited to tell you that today I am talking with Shane Seggar, who is a locations assistant for iProductions, which serves Hawaii Five-0. And there's an artistry to what he does that has fascinated me for a very long time, and it's taken me a very long time for me to get him on the show, so I'm very excited to introduce you to Shane Seggar.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're a busy guy.
Very busy. Not so busy right now.
This is good. You're on a little hiatus.
Hiatus for a couple months until we go back.
That's cool. What do you do while you're on hiatus for a couple of months?
I actually ended up working on another show, which is why I had to postpone this conversation. I was working on a small, low-budget film that came into Hawaii to film.
Oh.
So.
Okay, so let's talk about what you do, because here's my experience with what you do. We at Kumukuhua Theater, we're in the beautiful old Kinkamehameha the 5th post office.
Yes.
Which is a lovely building with pillars, and you were part of the decision-making team that said, we can turn that into the second floor of the palace, right?
Yes and no.
Okay, wait. Okay, so, well, let me just say that the Hawaii Five-0 guys came out and did some construction on the front of our building, and they turned it into the second floor of the palace. It looks like it.
Yes. So let me clarify what I was saying.
Okay.
The locations department is a large team of about 9 people.
Okay.
And we have a boss who's a location manager, and then 2 key assistant location managers. So sometimes those decisions happen above my head. So when we get a script, the producer and the director and my boss they look at it, we all look at it, and we break it down, looking at the locations that we need, what we could possibly use for those locations. Sometimes the producers and directors have an idea of what they want to use. Other times it's based on research that's being done. And so Kumukuhua Theater, if you're talking about the first episode of last season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What happened, the process for that was there was a bunch of research done by the art department. And then as they went through all the research, they realized that these buildings were buildings that would have been around at the time of our story, or the story that we were telling. And so that determined part of what we were going to do and why we were there. And actually, we weren't going for the second floor of the palace. We were going for just a business street that would have been around in downtown at the time.
Appropriate for that time. Oh,
right.
Okay.
And the pillars were perfect for us because we were able to, there was that big lanai, and so we could build that wall behind the pillars, so then we could put a storefront there. So then if you saw in the story, people went in and broke through the windows. The pirates came in, broke through the windows, and took stuff, and it looked like it was part of the building.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
A lot of decision making.
A lot of decision making. Okay, that's what I'd like to get into, how that happens, because there is, a lot of times I interview artists, and I'll talk with a painter, and what I discover with them very often is they're seeing things much more clearly than the rest of us. If they're doing a painting of a sky, they're seeing more in that sky than maybe you and I are, because we take it a lot for granted. We don't really look at it.
Right.
So the people who are making decisions for the locations, you guys are seeing things that aren't there.
Oftentimes, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very cool. And then there's the artistry of those guys came in, they transformed our building in a matter of hours. Did the filming, your lighting guys turned night into day. That's pretty awesome. And then bloop, it's all zipped up and it's out, and your teams just work really, for the most part, in harmony with the neighborhoods. It's a beautiful thing. There's an artistry in that turnaround.
We have really great crews. There's our construction and our set decoration teams, our rigging electric, all of our crews are really, really good. They're very professional, and they work really hard in trying to preserve the relationship we have with our neighbors. And frankly, our partners in making the show happen. If not for Kumakahua, that episode would not have been able to be filmed there, because if you'd said no, we would have had to figure something else out, right? For all the homes that we go into, it's the same thing. When they invite us into their homes, then we take a certain amount of responsibility to say, hey, we're going to take care of you because you've invited us in, because they're neighbors. 85%, at least 85% of our crew are local. So they come from here and they live here. So they have that idea that, hey, these are my neighbors that I'm working around. So I need to be as respectful as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shows. Is that a large portion of your job is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So are you walking around town are you looking for the locations yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I am an assistant by title, but I do a lot of the scouting. And there's different levels of scouting. Like, my assignments are usually more specific buildings, homes, and stuff like that. The executive team will go out and they'll actually choose streets and parks in those locations, because they have a catalog in their mind after 6 seasons of what they would want and what they're looking for. And so they can go, hey, well, what about that street? And they'll just drive to it, because they're actually out scouting. So we insert into their daily schedule locations that we think will work for specific homes, commercial businesses, anything that the script is calling for. And then while they're doing that and they're driving around, they're also looking for the streets that they're going to film. Because as anyone that watches the show knows, there's a lot of stuff that goes on inside the vehicles. And so we have to have those streets match what's going on inside the vehicles.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so when the show is written, are the writers thinking of what's possible, or are they just writing what's coming out of their head and then you guys are figuring it out?
It's both. There was a script that came out for not last season, but the season previous, that mentioned a pink apartment building on the corner of Kuhio and some other street. And we went looking around and we found it, and they had actually named it the right name. Oh. And so they'd probably in their time walking around Waikiki had seen it and said, oh, well, that's a great location. And so then it's our job to see, well, is it available, or are we gonna have to go somewhere else? And then there's other times where the script says one thing and the director decides that, oh, you know what, it probably needs to be something else. And so then they have a conversation between he and the showrunner, and they decide if they can go with a different direction. And then at that point, we get informed as to the new direction, and we figure out where to go for that. So.
Okay, so you're part of the planning and the layout of all of this, and then also the execution, because I know I have friends who've been on the show and been extras, and something is being, one of my friends said, oh yeah, we're filming over here, and I said, they're setting up here in front of the theater. So I know as this one's working, you're getting this one ready, and you're moving fast, man.
There are times where you have 3 to 4 locations a day. So break that up into 12-hour day, and we're only in a location sometimes 2 to 3 hours at a time, because we've got to bump off to the next one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, this show is known for its locations, and the show is known for showing Hawaii, and specifically Oahu off, and the only way we can do that is if we're on location. So
that's a big part of.
It's huge. We just, at the end of last season, we spent, I think, 5 days in Chinatown filming and bumping around, and thank you to Chinatown for hosting us and taking good care of us, because if they hadn't, done that, we would have had a lot of difficulty. So,
yeah.
Chinatown
is such a cool location.
Super cool.
A friend of mine was in town last weekend, and I took her into Chinatown on Friday night, and a lot of people think, why didn't you take your friend to Waikiki? Because Chinatown is so rich with,
Has a lot of flavor.
Yeah, there's flavor in Waikiki too,
Yeah.
Because some of that flavor you can get in Chicago on Michigan
Sure.
Avenue. You know, the Chinatown you're not going to get anywhere but our Chinatown. So I love it that you guys show so much of the locale. It's so good for Hawaii, I think.
We think so. I think it is. It doesn't hurt for the world to see, you know, Honolulu and Oahu as Honolulu and Oahu. And a lot of shows that come in are using the island for Puerto Rico or for other localities. And so it's a real honor actually to be able to find locations that represent Hawaii as it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I feel like I'm from the Midwest, and I was watching the original Hawaii Five-0 when I was
Right.
growing up. My mom had such a crush on Jack Lord. I was watching that, and then we had Dog the Bounty Hunter, and that was what was showing the rest of us in the Midwest who hadn't been here
Right.
what Hawaii was. So I'm glad that Hawaii Five-0
Showed up.
was there for it. Yeah.
Glad we could help.
We're about to take our first break, and then
Okay.
I want to come back to. I'd like to go back in your history and talk about how you got here,
All right.
how you worked your way into this position.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a short break. We will return in a moment with Center Stage.
Aloha, this is Maria Mera, and I'm here to invite you to my bilingual show, Viva Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii, every other Monday at 3 p.m. We're here to inform, motivate, and entertain you. Join us. Hola, soy María Mera y estoy aquí para invitaros a mi show bilingüe Viva Hawaii en Think Tech Hawaii cada 2 lunes a las 3 de la tarde. Estamos aquí para informaros, motivaros y entreteneros. Apuntaros.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, and I host Condo Insider. We talk about issues facing the condo association throughout Hawaii and talk about solutions. When you think about it, about 1/3 of our population lives in some form of common interest real estate. We broadcast every Thursday at 3 p.m. Please tune in and thank you. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back with Center Stage. I just wanted to let you know, I always say we're here in Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu. If you would ever like to join us in the audience, you can do that. Just email Jay, that's Jay, at thinktechhawaii.com, and he will hook you up. We're back talking with Shane Seggar he's a location assistant for Hawaii Five-0/I Productions.
Yes.
So when you grew up here? Did you grow up here?
No, I'm actually from Utah. I grew up in Utah.
Okay, when you were growing up in Utah, my only experience with Utah is I just saw the Book of Mormon, so forgive me.
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
It was hilarious, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm not a huge fan of musical theater. I enjoy doing it more than I enjoy watching it because, it's just such a device that is weird that
Right.
life music, moves itself forth in song. But the show was delightful. The talent was amazing.
Yeah.
The
they were great.
talent was amazing. I really want to figure out a way that we can, when we have amazing artists like that come into town, that we can get them to offer workshops or something for our
would
artists,
be awesome.
because we're kind of in a silo here,
A little bit.
We don't have a lot of training opportunities, but the show was amazing, and I really loved that when we walked out of the theater, there were the Mormons with the books for us. I'm like,
Yes, the elders were there.
I admire that marketing
And they were
savvy.
giving them away too. People were taking them.
Oh, people were taking selfies with them and posting them all
Yeah.
over the place. That was a huge boon for them.
Yeah, I was really smart for the Mormon Church to make that decision.
It was.
I was surprised.
Okay, so back to you.
Right.
So you grew up. You grew up. I just like it's like I saw.
Well,
chicken
no, it's
run by
actually
or
kind of.
something.
I actually was a Mormon missionary.
Were you?
Yeah, I was raised Mormon.
If you knocked on my door, I would open it.
Some people did and some people didn't. I was in Jersey for my mission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the inner city was an amazing place with amazing, colorful people who were interested in talking to anybody about something other than what their lives were, what they were going through in their lives. And then also people out in the country who were a little more fluent seemed a little less likely to talk. They were a little too busy. So
Wow, that's
it was
interesting.
really interesting. A lot of people would never want to go to Newark or Patterson or the oranges, East Orange, West Orange, because they're a little sketchy, but I had some of my best times there.
How long did you do that?
2 years. It's standard 2 years.
Oh, okay. What a study of anthropological study, right?
Yeah, and just a great opportunity to actually kind of get out of myself and not be so focused on myself at a young age, and kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life before investing a huge amount in my education. So,
Okay, perfect segue into my question. What did you want to do?
I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Really?
Yeah, when I was 15 years old, my neighbor was a printer and an art director, freelance art director for films. And he was probably a genius, like literally a genius, a super smart guy. And one day he was like, hey, do you want to work for me? I was like, sure, because I was 15 and I needed work. So he hired me as, they call him a printer's monkey, or printer's assistant. And so for the first year, I think I was learning how to like work on the printing press and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. And then one day he came in and he goes, you know, I'm about to do a Disney film. You want to work on it with me? I was like, 15 years old, of course I
Yeah.
would. So my first film was Down the Long Trails. It was a Louis L'Amour story, and it was filmed for Disney Cable. And I got to meet Bruce Boxleitner, Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Oh, okay.
And so it was like just this really cool experience. And then that became my summer job all through high school. I would work on films with him.
Oh,
I was really, really fortunate. It was really
awesome that you had that entree.
Yeah. And while that was all going on, in the film industry, and education isn't necessarily that important, because there's a lot of trade craft. And so you don't necessarily have to go to college to become very successful in the film industry. And I think he sensed that I was not that interested in school. And so probably every day when I was leaving the shop, he'd go, you have to go to college, you know that, right? I was like, yeah. And I think if not for Doug Johnson, I may not have considered college. Even though my family is super, like my parents, my father is a professor in social psychology. My mom was a licensed clinical social worker. Education was a big deal in my family. But, you know, I was kind of the art guy in the family, and I wasn't that interested in school much at all. So he was just like, he just kind of kept pushing me.
How many
So,
other kids in your family?
6 kids total.
Where do you fall in the...
3 and 4, because I'm so big. Just kidding. 3 of us were adopted, and 3 were natural born into the family. So age-wise, I'm 4th. Coming into the family in order, I was 3rd.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah. They had my oldest
Okay.
sister, adopted my brother, adopted me, and then adopted my sister who was older than my brother and I.
Gotcha.
So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
So they still supported you. They wanted you to go to college, and they probably wished that you would go study something. My family, when I said, I'm going to go study acting, they said, okay, but what are you going to do for money?
Right. Yeah, they were the same. And my father would like send me, I don't think we had email yet. That's how long ago that was. But he would, on the phone, he would say, well, you know, the statistics show that people in that industry don't do so well, and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I just figured, look, I'd already been in the industry long enough, because I'd already been in it. I'd been working in it for 4 or 5 years. And I just figured, watching those people, if anyone was going to be more equipped to deal with sudden changes in life, it was going to be people that work in film. Because a movie only lasts for so long, and then you've got to find another job. And so you learn how to be equipped to look for additional employment. So while you're working on a show, you're already looking for other shows to work on. And so I figured that would help me be prepared better than getting a 9-to-5 job somewhere.
For anything in life.
Yeah, for sure.
So you studied, where did you go to school?
Brigham Young University.
And, okay, there you go. And what was your major?
Wow. I think it's called Theater and Media Arts. I don't know if that's still what it's called there.
Okay.
So it was in that time when media was the new word, and so it was stopped being film. Like, I think when I started there, it was their film school, but now it's a media arts school. I had a really great program. I was bound and determined not to go to BYU, though. I'd gone to USC, interviewed, trying to get in there, and then my dad's like, well, you should go and talk to the film department. Just check them out. I was like, all right. So I went and talked to a guy named Tom Leffler, and he was basically the head of the program. And I said, why should I come here? Very arrogant of me, but I said, why should I come here? He's like, well, one, because we're a lot cheaper. I was like, that makes sense.
Okay.
And two, the undergrad program over there, you won't see cameras, you won't be able to do all this stuff. It's all going to be academic work. And you're going to have a lot of debt after that, and you still won't have been able to do what you really want to do. But if you come here, you will. So I thought about it for a while, and I decided, well, it makes sense. Plus, it was cheaper for me to go there because my dad was a professor there.
Oh, so it was even, yeah. That's a question every student should be asking the universities that they're considering. Why should I come here?
Especially now.
Yeah.
Especially now, every student should first question themselves, do I really have to go to a university to get the education that I need to do the job I want to do? Because there's a lot of technical schools out there that will get them through the training they need to do what they want to do, and they're not going to have to deal with 4-year degrees or 8-year degrees to get it done, because the technical school will get them trained and moving on and certified in whatever they want to do. I think education is really important. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do. However, because of the way that the education system is, the higher education system is now today, there's a lot of kids that get into a lot of debt. And the first 2 years are usually a lot of times wasted years because they're away from their parents and they decide that that's the time to cut loose. And why not get away from your parents for 2 years somewhere else where you're not going into debt for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But it made
soapbox.
sense for you. Okay, it made sense for you. No, we're good. And did you come out? You came out with the knowledge that you needed. Did you come out with context? Did you feel like they set you up? What was your next step?
Yeah, I did. The USC graduate program is like particularly set up for contacts and people who you know. BYU, it's more about, there is that networking that goes on there, but because we're a little more removed from Hollywood and from LA, it's not something you would normally just go, oh yeah, for sure I'm in because of these people. The education was great and the experience was great. I was fortunate enough to kind of develop my own path and my own degree that I never finished. But I went from like thinking I was going to be like the next Steven Spielberg to all of a sudden doing documentary films. And while I was there, I was actually doing an interview for one of my classes. And the guy said, hey, do you know this film student? He's interested in doing stuff on Samoa. And I'm half Samoan. And I said, no. He goes, well, you guys should hook up. And so we talked, and that conversation, that interview, turned into a project that I did for PBS called The Fire is Burning. And it looks at Samoan gangsters in the United States, specifically in the Long Beach area, in Carson City. And it was, so yeah, I think anywhere you go, you're going to be able to get network, and people will spur you and, will spur ideas in your head and inspire you to do different things. And that film became a real huge passion for me. And I didn't know why. And I had a great producer, again, Tom Leffler, the guy who I spoke to when I first went. He ended up being my executive producer. And every once in a while he goes, why are you doing this film? Why is this so important to you? Because it was difficult. Like, I'd have to fly to LA, I had to fly to Samoa, I had to find money, and it took me a long time to figure it out. And I just remember that first interview I did with the first gangster, which was in Salt Lake City. And I just remember feeling such a strong kinship with this guy. And I have nothing, I mean, I was raised Mormon.
It might have been a little
in the heart
different.
of Mormondom. So it's not like I'm like, out there in the hood with the boys, because it was so far removed from that it's just like, but I felt this strange kinship with these guys. And as I interviewed more and more of them, I continued to feel that kinship. And it took me like 3 or 4 years to figure out what it was. And it was that, what I believe that kinship is the feeling of dislocation from my culture, from my Samoan culture. Not knowing how I fit in, and what impact that culture should have on my day-to-day life. And I mean, that's the I've thought it through answer, but that's the feeling that, I came out with on that. And it really is, it's like that. And I think a lot of those kids, speaking for the Samoans, or if I could, I'm not sure if I can.
You can hear.
That there is that dislocation. You come here, you look different. A lot of the kids are fresh off the boat, so they're not so much anymore, but they were when I was making the film. And they are not sure how they fit in. And so their cousin says, hey, come hang out with me. And they just start hanging out with them. And then their parents have to go off and work 2 or 3 jobs, both parents, just to put food on the table and sneakers on their feet and a roof over their head. So they're gone. And so now you have these cousins saying, hey, come hang with me. And those cousins have already been hanging out with somebody else who may not be that great. And one of the things that I learned through this process is that children want to be told what to do. They want structure. And if parents won't do it, they'll find someone to do it for them. And gangs often are those institutions that they find to help them do that, because it's kind of edgy and cool, but they are being told what to do.
They are still in a structure.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay, we got to take another break. I would like to come back to that documentary that you worked on when we do that. Okay, we're going to take our second break. Please stay put. We'll be back in about 1 minute.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address...
Okay, this is Think Tech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO here and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on Think Tech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hi, we're back, and we are live here on Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Network. We're talking with Shane Seggar of iProductions and Hawaii 5.0, locations assistant. We're talking about all kinds of things.
All over the place.
Because, if you want to get involved in the film industry, I went out there and I said, I want to be involved in theater, and I thought that I needed to be on the stage, and then I realized there's a story that I wanted to tell that I wasn't going to be able to tell show to show to show. As an actor, I needed to be involved in actually managing a theater. And you talked about, the first documentary you were working on, you had to work on so much of the artistry and raising the funds for it. And all of those things are very, very important. They have to happen in order for documentary like the one you're talking about to get made.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, so your primary job is locations assistant with iProductions.
Yes.
But you also have satellite projects that you're working on? Do you still do
Gosh,
that?
I wish I had time for that. Yeah, there are stories that actually, in the course of making that first film, there were a lot of stories that came out that I really want to tell. It's just a matter of finding time to actually write them down and tell them. And then funding is always the big bugaboo, getting someone to pay for it. You probably understand that as managing director.
Managing director.
Kahua.
It's a big part of my life is looking for the funding for it, but what I'm always amazed at is how many people out there really want to get behind the type of work that we're talking about. It's just a matter of finding. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together, because they are out there. And when you see a piece of work like the documentary that you're talking about, which I really want to see. It sounds very moving, and
It's on Vimeo.
I will look for it.
It's free.
It's free.
It's
What's
free.
the name of it?
I think if you search "The Fire is Burning" and my name, you'll be able to find it in Vimeo.
Okay, I will look for it.
There's a Samoan name too, but it's a Samoan name.
Awesome. Okay. When people see that type of work, I think then it's easier. You've already got something in your pocket. Then it's easier to say, "Hey, this is the sort of thing that we're talking about and getting behind." And,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so moving forward, you did that, and then what happened?
Well, I was funded by an organization here in Hawaii called Pacific Islanders in Communications. And their goal or their mission is to help tell the stories of Pacific Islanders in the United States. They're funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the majority of their funded projects go to PBS, National PBS. They did a really great job of taking care of me through the process. When I put in and this was in college, so this was basically my graduate thesis, or not graduate thesis, but it kind of was, because it was the real deal. And as soon as they awarded me the funding, they started working with me and saying, "Hey, what do you want to do? How do you want to move forward with this?" And they took a really active role in mentoring me. And then in addition to that, they provided opportunities for me to be like the assistant to a director for a Great Performances project that came in here in Hawaii to film. They gave me an opportunity to actually be a producer on another dance program that was filming all around the Pacific. So I got to produce that and help with logistics and all that stuff to make that happen. And then they sent me to conferences, like the PBS conferences, and they helped me get enrolled in the producers workshop that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting does for filmmakers that are up and coming, or that they hope they're up and coming. And they give them a chance to workshop their material. So I workshopped my show, which is, the Samoan name is Le'afi Uamu, The Fire is Burning. And so I got to workshop that in Boston at WGBH with a lot of the top documentary filmmakers in the country. And it was just an amazing experience. And so I had all these experiences that PIC provided for me, or helped me move towards. And we were in Palau, I think filming the last portion of the dance film. And the executive director of Pacific Islanders and Communications at the time, Carlene Tunney, was out there with me. And she had arranged for me when we stopped in Guam to do a workshop with filmmakers in Guam. And then after that, we were talking, and I said, "Hey, I just want to thank you." Because the investment in me was great. They invested quite a bit in me. And I was just so grateful for all they'd done for me. I said, "Hey, just let me know if there's anything I do for you." And she just kind of turned to me and cocked her eyebrow, and she was like, "Anything?" I was like, I know I was sunk at that point. I was like, "What? You can't be already?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "We would like to consider you for the programming director for PIC, which is the #2 spot under her." I said, "Well, let me think about it." At the time, I was working with a company called Combat Films and Research, and our focus was to document military and political conflict around the world. And that's actually what I'd been doing when she made this offer. And so I kind of talked it over with my boss. He's like, "Yeah, you probably should do that." So I moved to Hawaii and took the position. And that's what brought me to Hawaii. So.
Okay. And that's what brought you to Hawaii. And then how long were you with PIC?
3 years.
Okay.
And as you would know, nonprofits are grueling and they take a lot of energy. And I decided that I was done. And I have great love for PIC. They are an amazing organization, and they're still helping great filmmakers. And the thing is that like the filmmakers that I was working with at the time at PIC, they are now the up-and-coming filmmakers in Hawaii. They are behind the cameras at Hawaii 5.0. They're behind cameras on all these productions that are coming through. They're working out there in the industry now, and they are great. They're great at what they do. They're amazing. It's been amazing to watch them grow and to see their determination and their hard work and perseverance to be able to learn the craft so that they can eventually tell the stories that they've always longed to tell. So it's an amazing thing to watch.
That's a very cool community to be a part of.
Yeah, it is. It's great to watch. They're amazing artists.
So what about the combat work that you were doing?
Combat films and research.
Yeah.
When I was working on my film, I ended up sharing an office with a guy named Dodge Billingsley. And people would make fun of us because it's Shane and Dodge hanging out together.
What names?
Right?
I hear the music from Good, Bad, and the Ugly when you say that. Okay.
So we were hanging out. He was working on he'd just come back from Chechnya. He'd gotten himself smuggled into Chechnya and was hanging out with Shamil Basayev, a warlord that was basically running the rebellion in Chechnya during the 90s. And he'd just gotten back from that and had all his footage, and he was cutting together a documentary on it. And it was instantly interesting to me. And my film was moving in different directions, and he's like, and so there was, in documentary filmmaking, there are times when you're like working really hard on your project and times where you're just sitting around waiting for something to happen. And so he said, well, why don't you come work for me, when you have time? So I started working with him. And it was really amazing because he had a lot of great contacts, and he was a stringer, I believe, for CBS. And his expertise was Chechnya and that area of the world.
What's a stringer?
A stringer is a reporter who doesn't work exclusively for a news organization, but they're someone that they'll go to for certain things. So,
Okay.
so
Freelance.
Pardon?
Like freelance?
Yeah, he's freelance. Yeah,
Okay.
he was a freelance reporter for them. So they call them stringers. We were working on the Chechen project, and then we were working on something else. And I remember I was in the gym before I was going to the office, and I was watching the towers go down, 9/11. And he was preparing to travel, I think, to DC that day to go for a meeting for some project that we were interested in doing. So I got back, I called him and said, hey, did you see this? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm on the phone right now. We're making different arrangements because I can't get out right now, obviously. I can't go. So everything that we were doing changed. And he ended up in March, I think, in, darn it, my mind just went blank. Afghanistan, just outside of Afghanistan, I think it was Uzbekistan, waiting to cross over the border to go in to see what was going on because we were about to mount a big offensive against Afghanistan. And so he was there when, in Mazar-e-Sharif, when the Taliban rose up against the Northern Alliance in Mazar-e-Sharif, which is this big fortress. And he was there, and all the footage that we have on the news from that was from him and from another reporter. Because when they went, it was a funny news story. They were at a hotel, they'd crossed the border in Afghanistan, they were at a hotel, he came down the next morning, and everyone was getting ready to go on this junket over to a hospital because the US military wanted to show what we were doing in Afghanistan to help rebuild infrastructure. And he was talking to one of the reporters, and he goes, yeah, are you going to, and they said, are you going to the hospital? And he goes, well, don't you hear that gunfire, like over there somewhere? They're like, yeah, we're going to the hospital. So he and this reporter from France, they were like, let's go. So they hopped in a taxi, and they took the taxi to the battle. They hopped out of the taxi took off, and they're walking up towards the fortress, Mazar-e-Sharif. And all of a sudden, RPGs go flying over their heads. And their cameras are on, so we have footage of that. So and he went in and he was in there for like 3 or 4 days while it was being bombed, while it was like all this stuff was going on. I was hooked, like immediately hooked into it. Now I was his support back home. I didn't get to go to Afghanistan for that. But those were the sorts of projects that we started working on. We got him embedded in with the Marines when we crossed over from into Iraq, from Kuwait into Iraq in 2003. And we had another reporter who was with us who was embedded with one of the Army companies. And so it was just this whole, and I had the nice junk at that time. They were getting ready to go into Iraq, and I was in Abu Dhabi at the International Defense Exhibition, hanging out in 5-star hotels and looking at all the newest technology and weaponry. So, but that's what I was doing. So, so Combat Films was focused on that sort of stuff.
That's very cool that you had a chance to get that experience, and man, I love it with the advent of Netflix and Vimeo that we can get out, we can watch so many more documentaries, so much easier. I mean, it used to be they had to show something on PBS in order for you to, you had to be home at the right time, I'm glad that that's out there, that you had that experience, and I wonder if that must be like in you. Are you anxious to get back to that somehow?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
Time. One of the things I've learned in life is that in my life, I just have to keep moving forward, and then when it's time to do whatever it is I'm doing, it'll happen.
It'll come.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that too. If you just stay, if you continue doing what you know is the right thing to do, one foot in front of the other, then things will come to you, present themselves. And you're doing really wonderful work with Hawaii Five-0, and that is a very important show to Hawaii, to a lot of our artists here. It is a place where a lot of our actors join your actors there, and it's excellent for their careers. It's an opportunity for them to work without having to leave the island, without having to leave their families, and get that amazing experience. There's a lot of good that's going on there too, and I don't want to discount that at all.
No, there is. Hawaii Five-0 is a great show. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for me to work. The logistics that go into preparing even one location for our show is sometimes mind-numbing, and having to maybe do 3 or 4 locations at once really pushes and stretches you or me, and it's a great opportunity to learn and grow. It's it's the refiner's fire. It's an amazing opportunity. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's cool to watch the show. It's cool to watch the show when you live here in Hawaii. And see all the places that you recognize, but then to imagine what kind of work and effort and the immense amount of people that goes into every 3-minute segment.
It's a big machine. It's a big machine. Hawaii Five-0 was a big machine, and I think I was listening to the executive producer say once, he's like, and this was this last season, he goes, out of 300 people, only 30 people of those are distant hires. So that means 270 of our crew, our regular working crew, are all from here. And they're giving their piece to the show. They're giving what they have to offer, and their artistry and their technical skill, making things happen for us it's an amazing contribution that we get from all the local people that work on the show.
Yeah. And you're always showing filmmakers out there the professionalism that can happen here in Hawaii.
Yeah, and they have a great internship program with UH, with ACM. And so every semester they get I think it's 5 to 10 interns from UH.
Oh, awesome.
They get to come and work on the show. And that actually oftentimes leads to jobs, to actual jobs.
That is awesome. That's what every university should also be able to say. And here's where we place a lot of our students.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to wrap us up. It's been really nice talking with you, Shane. I'm glad to have the opportunity. We didn't get to talk about your push-ups real quick.
Okay, so on Facebook, I'm doing this thing called, which camera? On Facebook, there, all right. On Facebook, I'm doing this thing, it's called 22 push-ups for 22 kills. There's an epidemic of veterans coming back from all the conflicts it's veteran suicide, basically. And on average, statistically, there are 22 veterans, male or female, that decide that life is too difficult and it's time to end their lives. And so I'm doing this challenge. I was challenged to do this challenge called 22 push-ups for 22 kills in honor of those men and women that have gone out there who have represented us, we the people, on the battlefield, and who have now not had anywhere to turn and decided to move on. And so the whole point of it is to raise awareness. If you know a veteran, reach out to them, let them know that they're cared for and that they're loved.
Awesome. Okay, we're out. Center Stage, we'll see you next week. Thank you.